And Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show here on Newsmax TV. You know, China remains the biggest threat to the American people. Tonight, there are new reports on where the China virus actually came from, but are those reports germane to the overall discussion about the most inhuman regime on planet Earth? We'll discuss that with Gordon Chang and Bill Gertz coming up. Also tonight, all eyes are on our Congress once again. Now, when we last left our alleged representatives, they had abandoned their duty and the law by once again failing to complete a regular budget process. Instead, opting for an end-of-year omnibus spending screw job that funded foreign governments, wasteful American government spending, and reserved only a pittance for taxpayers who have had their lives destroyed by their own government's ignorant prescriptions for fighting the China virus. Now, this Wednesday, Congress will be tasked with addressing the highly controversial election results. The courts have refused to provide remedy for myriad irregularities that have yet to be addressed from the presidential election. We know that at least 4 states did not follow their own election laws. That's illegal. Aside from the anecdotal oddities that saw Joe Biden allegedly winning more of the black vote than Barack Hussein Obama, or ignoring the fact that Biden spent the entire campaign in his basement and couldn't draw flies, much less enthusiastic support. There were statistical anomalies that are just as baffling. One statistician saying that Biden's surprise come-from-behind win in contested states was a 1 in quadrillion probability. Another fact eludes the curiosity of the biased press. According to USA Today, Joe Biden won 509 counties while Trump won 2,547 counties. Biden's victories accounted for just 16.7% of counties with finalized results. That represents a record low proportion for a winning presidential candidate. The previous low was set by Obama, 2012, with 689 counties, equal to 22%. And before that, he also set another low in 2008 with 28% of counties, according to NBC News. None of this has been explained, and many voters are being told with a straight face that it won't be explained, because that's the way the establishment in Congress and in the press say it will be. That brings 2 things to mind. How much longer will the American people tolerate being dictated to by their so-called representatives? And how much longer will the biased press be relevant in our national discussion? We'll address that second question tonight. Is the majority of the press pro-American? That's our jumping off point in tonight's preamble. Throughout the Trump presidency, the conduct of the mainstream press has been abhorrent. They have abandoned long-established safeguards designed to protect integrity in favor of a scorched earth policy designed to hobble and get rid of President Trump. In the last 4 years, so-called reporters have had to correct or retract more inaccurate stories than I can remember. This lack of integrity and credibility didn't stop over the holidays. One of the big stories today is a conversation between President Trump and the slimy Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger. In the call, President Trump could be heard making his case about the anomalies that he thinks that should be addressed in Georgia. Raffensperger can also be heard telling the president that he's misinformed. As fair news outlets like Newsmax have observed, the conversation was fine and the president acted properly. The spin on this from the unfair press has been a disgrace. One of the ringleaders of misrepresenting yet another phone call from this president is the Washington Post. The Post claimed that in his talk with Raffensperger that Trump, quote, repeatedly urged him to alter the outcome of the presidential vote in the state, end quote. This is a 100% lie by the Post. But in the era of Trump, where so-called news outlets sacrifice truth for a political outcome, it's par for the course. Why are American outlets being so brazen in telegraphing their political agenda through what passes for news coverage? We might find the answer to that in a piece from an up-and-coming periodical called the National Pulse. The author's name is Natalie Winters. The title is sobering. All major Western media outlets take private dinners, sponsored trips from Chinese Communist propaganda front. In the article, Ms. Winters says that according to a deep dive into the Department of Justice's Foreign Agent Registration Act filings, a cozy relationship emerges between Western so-called journalists and the barbaric and cruel communist government of China. The report details that outlets like CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and MSNBC have participated in private dinners with sponsored trips with an entity called the China-United States Exchange Foundation. As is the case with everything in that repressive government, this group is a Chinese Communist Party funded group. Now, they seek to garner favorable coverage and and disseminate positive messages regarding China. The Pulse also alleges that Forbes, the Financial Times, Newsweek, Bloomberg, Reuters, ABC News, The Economist, The Wall Street Journal, AFP, Time Magazine, the LA Times, The Hill, BBC, and The Atlantic have also engaged in this cooperative effort with America's Chinese enemies. According to the U.S. government report, the wining, dining, and travel effort is an attempt to, quote, co-opt and neutralize sources of potential opposition to the policies and authority of its ruling Chinese Communist Party. Since President Trump's campaign and election, he and a few stalwart conservatives have opposed the thieving, repressive, and murderous regime that rules China with an iron fist. Because of this, China has opposed President Trump at every turn. It is also true that a majority of the press has opposed President Trump, favoring a socialist Democrat Party and a Biden family that has long established ties and favorable policies toward Beijing. The press has whitewashed or ignored the policies and how they have worked to the detriment of the United States and our people. Many arrogant members of the press, they think they are the ones who ask the questions and that they never have to answer those questions. But I think Americans must start asking questions of the press. Chief among them, what can we do to strike back at a left-wing press, given their unbalanced news coverage, favoring the Socialist Party and its policies, given their unfair treatment of President Trump and conservatives, given their apparent work at the behest of an American enemy, China? We, the people, should at least be asking, why on earth would we listen to a damn thing any of them say? You've all heard the expression, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There is a corollary to that. The friend of my enemy is my enemy.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.